I'll be talking personal energy maintenance with my guest, Gail Behrend. If you haven't heard her awakening story, please give episode 72 a listen. Welcome to Evolving Humans. I'm your host, Julia Marie, and this podcast is for visionary people like you who are exploring the true nature of reality and want to contribute to the global awakening. You seek to deepen the connection to your multidimensional self so that you can live a more conscious life. There's a powerful little book out there that belongs in every spiritual seeker's library, and my guest today co-authored this gem. The title of the book is Energy is Real, a practical guide for managing personal energy in daily life. And that book is the focus of our discussion today. I'm honored to be welcoming Gail Behrend back to the show. We're going to focus on personal energy and what we as individuals can do to maintain our energy integrity. Gail is an engineer, author, speaker, and healer. Her spiritual journey led her to explore human energy and alternative healing. She's a graduate of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing and has been an energy practitioner in Vancouver, Canada for over 25 years. Welcome to Evolving Humans, Gail. Thank you so much for coming back to talk to me again.
Thank you very much for inviting me back. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation.
Before we dive into the topic in general, I'd like to have you define a few of the terms that we're going to be talking about today. So let's start with, what is personal energy?
Well, I define it as basically the sum total of those parts of us that are not physical. And ultimately, our true nature is fluid consciousness. And within that fluid consciousness part of us resides all the things that help us identify as who we are, our thoughts, our emotions, our sensations, intuitive type sensations, our dreams, our conscience, our longings, our intuition, our sense of right and wrong, all of these aspects, and our soul's longings, all of these are aspects of our energy. They're not generated by the brain or the body. They exist beyond it, and they exist. In fact, our reality is eternal, and as pure consciousness and energy, we're not limited by our physical body. We inhabit it, we grew it, and the physical is kind of a slowed down form of energy, which we inhabit, and every area of our energy interpenetrates with the physical, but it's not limited by it. I call our energy nature really basically the subtle aspects of our being that can't be measured, but we know are real, and that are who we actually identify as, who we really know is our true self. So things that we may not share with anyone else, like for example, our dreams or items of conscience, or our even our secrets and all that, they're actually held in the field, and they're what make us feel unique. They are, because they are unique. That's in a nutshell of how I would describe it. So personal energy behaves in ways similar to electromagnetic energy. So it has electromagnetic properties.
I like the term you used of fluid consciousness. And I always tell people that consciousness is on a continuum. And the other observation you made that lit up for me was when you said the body is a slowed down version of that, because that's exactly correct. We're the omega end of that spectrum. And the alpha end is the source we all come from, at least in my view.
That's right. Yeah. And the thing, I mean, we came in, like when we first incarnated, we were one cell, one fertilized egg, right? Which then divided and slowly started differentiating. And that's kind of a miracle in itself. But our consciousness infused it the whole time it was building our body. So our consciousness was directing it.
Yeah.
It had a purpose and a plan for this life, and the body it chose and grew. It wasn't like we just ended up with a body. We actually grew it. and it grew in alignment with our consciousness. It has an intimate part of it, but when we're done with this life, we set it aside and it returns back into the elements of Earth, the way all things do on this planet. But our consciousness continues, and it lets go of the lower levels of the field, which were necessary for our human incarnation, but retains the upper ones, and they go to continue on to other lifetimes and other experiences.
Another term I want you to define is, what is energy awareness?
So energy awareness is being able to open to our energy senses. And I'd like to just add that we have a whole set of senses that are designed to detect and read and understand energy.
Yes.
Just like we have our physical senses, we also have a complete set of, if you like, psychic.
I call them metaphysical senses.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. They're natural. They're not weird. They're not woo-woo. They're actually as natural as our physical senses. And anyone with pets would know that they're, just through sheer observation, that their pets are highly sensitive to your emotional state and also they can sense danger well before it's near. Mm-hmm. We have those same senses. Our physical human bodies evolved from the animal kingdom. So it was equipped with this. It's part of our, the protective, system needed for navigating this planet. So it's exquisitely attuned to the energies of this planet, because it's needed for us to safely navigate this place. And, however, in modern eras, in indigenous cultures, energy is considered normal for them. Their energy senses are aware, and they can sense into, animals and that sort of thing. And they've had to, as, part of their evolution as well. So we've just been basically taught to ignore our energy information, and as children by our parents who've already shut theirs off. And they say, oh, you've got a good imagination, or you're making that up, or nah, I didn't say that. And so any information that we were getting on those channels, if you like, those senses, we dismiss. We are literally taught to ignore it. Or sometimes we do sense stuff. It's not corroborated by our parents, but it's so scary what we're sensing. We don't know. We can't talk to them about it because they won't believe us. And so we may deliberately turn off our energy senses because it's too painful to experience them. And so we may actually deliberately, not consciously, but shut it off because it's just too painful or scary. And so there are people, for example, who might not know that they're empaths, but at a very young age, it was just too much information that was coming to them energetically. And so they weren't coming from a logical place. They were coming from a self-protective place. They shut down their senses. Doesn't mean they lost them. It just means they blocked the information coming from their senses.
If I'm understanding what you're saying, the short answer would be energy awareness is me paying attention to the signals I'm getting?
Yes, that's correct.
Paying attention to the information as it hits my field, that would be energy awareness.
Yes.
Okay. One last term before we dive into the topic. From your perspective, what is the real self? That's capital R, capital S.
Well, from my perspective, it's our divine core essence. It's the eternal aspect of us that's on an adventure here in time and space in this, but it's not limited to it. It's just like visiting this planet, and our body is kind of like our earth suit as we navigate this world. And I know that sounds very weird, but it kind of makes sense. I see, and this is my opinion, right? My personal take on it. I see the brain as a type of transducer, or onboard computer, if you like, a transducer. And its job, in my opinion, and my experience is to translate the energy into a physical experience. So it translates energy signals, which are electromagnetic, as I said, in nature, into biochemicals, neurotransmitters, and that sort of, so that when we're feeling afraid, for example, we feel it first energetically, and then the body translates it. So we're picking up the sense of threat energetically, but then the brain translates that into a physical reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So causing the sweating and the heart rate to go up and that sort of thing. And then because we're so shut off to our energy senses, then we notice when we see our body reacting, oh, I'm afraid.
That's a great example though, because that literally is the process. Unless we start paying attention to the signals, because what I've learned over time is the more I pay attention, the earlier in that process I pick up the signal. So I'm aware of it before I get the sweaty armpits.
And you earlier you can do something about it. So
Exactly.
you can choose how to respond instead of reacting, unconsciously. And that changes your ability to behave in a situation, which can actually save your life even, or at least diffuse a situation if necessary, or get yourself out of there before anything physically happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. Respond instead of react. In addition to personal energy, what other kinds of energy do I need to be aware of?
That's a great question. So our energy awareness is picking up information around us, not just what's going on inside of us, but also what's going on around us. So we're becoming aware of other people's energy, also their intentions, their degree of alignment with truth. We can, when we're energy aware, we can sense when people are off, when they're not really, and some of us can sense it vaguely. There's something fishy going on, but we don't know, can't pinpoint it what it is. But when you're really energy aware, you can really pinpoint it. Like you become aware. And the other thing is, the other benefit of energy awareness is opening to the bigger picture. So there's so much more information available to us. One is the environment itself. You can enter a house and you immediately sense whether it's a healthy home.
Yep.
Yeah, whether it's heavy, whether there's abuse or something going on in there. Physical objects take on our energy, the energy of the owners and the people who are around it. And so they radiate it back. And so if somebody's, been an invalid or something for a long time, you might feel closed in and helpless in a place like that. So our energy awareness picks up the energy of the environment itself and also the energy of objects. You may have done it if anybody's done this in sort of like a psychic exploration class where you took somebody's jewelry or something and you tried to sense something about them. I think they call it psychometry. So we can actually pick up, by attuning into an object that belongs to somebody, we can pick up information about the person who owns it. Just maybe generally at the nature of that person and that sort of thing, depending on how sensitive you are. The other thing that we're sensitive to is the energy of crowds. Energy amplifies exponentially when there's a crowd of people. So, if we're talking about awakening and that sort of thing, a small group of dedicated, loving people can make a huge change in humanity's direction. So this is where, sensing into the planet and what's going on in the planet, what's going on right now. It's a very weird time, right? Most of us would agree. There's all kinds of disruption going on and it's getting harder and harder to discern truth from fiction. And so a really important need is to be able to sense, sorry, where is the truth?
Yep.
Am I being led deceived in some way? Because seems to be there a lot of that going on. And so where do you turn? You can't go to the internet anymore. It's like a cesspool of conflicting opinions and people's reactions, right? Their explosive emotional reaction. But it's just so disruptive. And you go in there, if you're sensitive at all, you can't spend long in that before you have to get out of, turn it off and just kind of reconnect with yourself. But we're affected by that. Just looking at the comments, say on YouTube videos, depending on the type of video, some of them are nice, but some of them more, can be quite disturbing. And we can actually pick up on people's emotional energy and thought forms. If we're particularly sensitive, we may not even know that we're picking it up from someone else. and we may think it's us. And then we'll react to it just as if it were our emotions. So those are aspects of energy that are worth knowing about.
If I wanted to start taking better care of myself energetically, is that something I could do?
Yes, absolutely. I highly recommend it. The first part is there's several steps to getting to that stage. The first step is to even be able to sense your energy.
Yes.
And so the first step is getting clear about what's going on inside of you. And that requires distancing yourself from outside distractions. Meditation is a perfect time to do it, but just going quiet and being curious about what's going on inside of you. And if you are having an emotional reaction to something, just allowing yourself to feel the emotions and allow them to lead you to what the underlying thing was that was triggered. And it's usually a belief or a thought form, which may not even be yours. Or it may be yours and it's very young. And so you get to know yourself better. So that's the very critical first step in learning how to manage your energy, is being able to read it in the first place. And then the next step would be, being able to expand your awareness beyond your own energy field into the field around you and into, but first I would say before you expand it further, the next step would be to learn how to manage your energy just in your own field, how to change your energy state, your emotional state, or your mental state if you're confused, or your spiritual state if you're in despair or something like that, or confusion, hopelessness. Those are spiritual states. And so that there's a lot of rich exploration, just learning how to be able to, first of all, understand what's going on, and then deliberately changing your energy so that you can be more resourceful in what you're experiencing inside. And then, of course, in order to be able to sense energy, you need some energy to be able to sense it. So you're going to need to be able to charge your field and increase it, which helps you become more aware. And so these are kind of intersecting skills. And then the other thing, before I would suggest another important skill before you go trying to sense outside yourself, is learning how to create safety for yourself. And it's something that you can do. Ideally, it's a skill you want to develop before you need it. And so do it playfully and explore. And the book contains all the steps for doing that. But by practicing when you don't need it, in other words, just like you would do yoga or do some other skill to build your muscles or whatever, by practicing the skill of being able to create basically a safe boundary around your field, so that you can block at will what you don't want to enter your consciousness and let in what you want, right? So you get to choose.
You described what I think is that particular exercise right at the end of our last conversation. Is that the building of the bubble with the love?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so I'm going to encourage everybody to go listen to that again. But that's a very simple, straightforward, yet powerful way to be in your own energy.
Absolutely. And one little thing I'd like to add to that is that by practicing it on your own, there's I don't know if you've heard of neuro-linguistic programming or NLP. There's a technique they use called anchoring. And so when you have a state you like, you can actually anchor it by doing something like pinching a little finger, something unobtrusive. And the brain will associate that sensation with that state. And so the more you practice it and anchor it, you're actually creating a little push button for yourself to quickly enter that state when you need it. So I highly recommend that, so that when you are in an emergency and you need to be calm and feel safe, you can just
pinch your finger,
or tug your earlobe, whatever you want to use as your trigger. That's a really powerful thing to do when while you're still practicing, build that anchor too. And then it's available to you when you don't have time to go through the steps of getting into your bubble by tweaking it. Or you can even use a word like the word bubble, if you like, or shields up, if you want to do like a Star Trek, anchor, go right ahead. Claudette and I, went into a thrift store, but before we did, because we're both very sensitive, thrift stores are full of messy energy, right? Because everybody's used things or what we would do is we'd look at each other as we got out of the car. We'd look at each other and say, shields up. And then we'd walk into the thrift store. So that's an example, a silly one, but it's an example of how helpful it can be when you know you're entering a situation that could throw you off, could upset you.
To make you're consciously intending to reestablish your boundary.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can use that technique, anchoring technique with any skill that you want to be able to use quickly. You might use a different anchor for that, or even just the word, for example, grounding is an important skill. I can't just tell myself ground and boom, I'm there. So I don't have to think about it. I just, my system is now programmed to do that.
I have a similar suggestion that I use with students when I first teach them how to ground themselves. And it's a longer phrase, but it's I'm grounded, I'm centered, I am connected. That's what I use in the morning.
Yeah.
The first thing
beautiful.
I say, and I can feel my whole system do what it needs to do. I don't have to go through the whole step-by-step process anymore.
And in fact, it's longer because there's 3 things it's doing.
Yes.
Right?
That's correct.
Basically, there are 3 triggers in there. Because I'm sure as you learned it, you were learning one piece at a time, right?
Yep.
And then you strung them together.
I understand that some of the benefits of managing my personal energy can be like my health and increased energy, maybe better creativity, better relationships. But what can happen if I neglect taking care of my personal energy field?
Well, the first thing that happens is you lose energy because you're going to be buffeted around anyway, right? Life is like that. Things happen. It's not even keel. Other people happen. Our relationships are going to trigger us. They just do. And so you end up buffeted around by the events of life and by things that happen in relationship, by people who are also triggered by you. They'll trigger you back and that sort of thing. So you're just like a ping pong ball energetically reacting to whatever's going on in your life. And you miss out on things that later you might say, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Right. You miss out on a better way of responding that could have led to a better solution for all concerned. Right. And so and this is really important at work too, because you have all these multiple personalities interacting and in the environment, and then add to that stress of deadlines and maybe a boss that's unforgiving. Or when you're under stress, you're starting to go into the fight or flight mechanism, and your response isn't necessarily going to be the most helpful one. But when you can manage your energy, you are able to calm yourself down, put yourself back into a state of empowerment, and then you have a chance to say, okay, wait, now what do I really want to happen here, and how can I make things work better? Nobody else knows how to manage their own energy, so you can't look to them to fix things in that sense, right? Once people are triggered, they're just running around freaking out. And so somebody's got to bring everyone back into, and if you have that skill, you can be that person. And it's worth it for all concerned, you too.
The going out of whack and the being out of sorts and at the whim and the mercy of what's around you, that's exactly does answer the question.
And it's exactly what we're dealing with right now.
Exactly what we're dealing with right now.
It's been amplified. So,
I always remind people, and I was raised Catholic, so there are quite a number of things in the Bible that have always resonated with me. And one of them was, we're to be in this world, not of it.
Yes.
That to me would mean I am able to maintain my energy while being out in the world and not be affected by it. And hopefully somehow, sometimes I'm able to impact the situation I'm in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And here's one little addendum to the why is it important to manage your energy, and is that it takes energy to sense energy. So if you are taking good care of your field, with energy hygiene, that is clearing energy that is not yours, and clearing and transforming energy that's basically also changing your thoughts that are draining you of energy. Energy responds so quickly. It's not like you have to do 50 push-ups for weeks to increase your energy. You don't. You just have to change one thought, and your energies instantly change. So that's the wonderful thing about it. It's so responsive. And it also means we could be thrown off really quickly unless we're able to hold our field. And so we're more likely to get thrown off if we even don't take proper care of ourselves physically, don't have enough sleep, don't get fresh air and connection with the earth itself. We really need that. It's so important to our whole energy system for being here. Our body needs it. We tend to become sort of self-absorbed unless we have that connection with the planet and the rest of life. These are all important aspects of our energy self-care.
It's going to be our time for this episode because what comes next is a guided exercise for Evolving Humans listeners. It's a check-in routine you can use to start your day and maybe use periodically throughout. Because it alters your state of awareness, I've separated it from our main conversation for your safety. Please only listen to the following episode when you're in a safe, quiet place. Thank you, Evolving Humans listeners, for your continued support. Keep sharing this content with like-minded friends, and together we'll lift this planet. To communicate with Gail, go to her website, energyisreal.com. And now, a quote for you as you go about your day. Basically, there is simply nothing to worry about because you yourself are the eternal energy of the universe. Alan Watts.